Hello everyone, I am back once again. Not a long time, I will say that, because I did upload a couple of videos, but here I am to do a review, a triple review specifically, on the only small dinosaur I have in the Hammond collection, and the two medium or small or medium-sized dinosaurs in the Hammond collection I have so far. So here they are. There they are. Now, first, before I say anything, I won't say any PSAs, other than I won't have the box, but I will have a picture on screen of what they look like, because I put them in storage and such, or probably threw them in the garbage. But yes, these are nice, but they're also plain. I really mean they're plain. They're very basic in terms of, like, looks. They're gray. It's a bunch of grays and oranges. Pretty cool, though. So, yeah, there's that. Now, before I move on to a quick overview, why am I doing this? Very simple. Because Jurassic World Rebirth is gonna come in like 2 months, I am gonna do a full-blown review on every Hammond collection figure I have, leading up to Jurassic World Dominion or Jurassic World Rebirth, and there's a 50-50. I may or may not do a review on Jurassic World Dominion and how I really think it holds up to today's standards. And do I think it's still as bad as I thought it was back then? So, yeah. Now let's move on to the quick overview. Okay, so you know the drill. You know my quick overview. It's a little complicated because, I don't know where to start really. But the Hammond collection line is a really interesting line of figures. Oh, and I gotta move this guy. It's an interesting line because you think, articulated dinosaurs. I feel like articulated dinosaurs figures from the Jurassic franchise was kind of impossible, or even back then, I didn't even think of it because I wasn't really a Jurassic fan. Now, after watching the entire Jurassic films, including Dominion, of course, I wanted to jump on the Jurassic World train, or Jurassic Park train. So the first thing I got was actually this Baryonyx. This was the first figure I got. Then I got the T-Rex as a present from my cousins. And then later on, I then got the Dilophosaurus and the Ceratosaurus figures later on. Now, yeah, these figures have kind of hold up pretty well, and they're kind of one of the more rare figures of the line. So there's that, but there's also a lot of QC issues, and if you watch Marco Makes, you would know what I mean. He is, I think, for me, one of the best creators and customizers for the Jurassic fan base, and I do think he can make some amazing He does have some amazing points when it comes to his figures, and I do think it is very informative because, he really does care a lot. And with that aside, yeah, I'm gonna definitely show some of the mini complaints I have with these figures in general. But anyways, yeah, I do really like these figures, although I will admit the Ceratosaurus, I had a quick little funny story. This is my second one. The first one I got had an incredibly loose ball joint to the point it was just drooping. It was flopping around everywhere as soon as I put it in his tail. So immediately I had to return it and then got this guy. So, yeah, that's the funny story. But anyways, let's go and actually start off the review. And I'm going to start off with the smallest here, and then move to the Barry, and then move to the Ceratosaurus. So let's go on with the painting and the sculpting of the Dilophosaurus. Now, as my only small dinosaur I have so far in the Hammond collection figures I have, I gotta say, the painting and the sculpting on this figure is pretty decent, I will say. Although there are some things that I will mention, like the proportions. But I will say there's a lot of good things here too. So starting off with the head, which is, I think, the main point of, not really contention, the main draw here because of the giant frill. The painting and the sculpting on the mouth is really good. The eyes are pretty symmetrical, and there's a nice amount of detail there. And one thing I really like too, especially again, is this frill. It's so nicely well painted, although I think there might have been a black outline here. And yeah, I really love the painting here. Although I feel like there should be more paint on the top here. I don't know. But yeah, it looks very different than that of the Raptors. And funny thing too, funny thing too, I guess, is that Dilophosauruses are technically bigger than raptors in real life. So, but we no paleontology here, so we won't go there. But one of my mini complaints is the jaw. I don't know why. It looks really ugly on the front. There's so much gappage when it comes to that, and it kind of annoys me. Because, like, the teeth should be here, but I don't know why they're here. But I guess just so that the jaw could fully close. That's fine. But one minor complaint I have is, and this will go on for the rest of the body, is that there's no white outline. The original Amber Collection figure had this, and I think even the design in the first movie had this, so it makes no sense. But I really do love the details. Again, especially on this frill here, very nicely painted too. And then moving on to the neck, as I also remove it. Yes, this is the one figure I have that has a removable part. You get to see more details there. Very nicely well done and very nicely well painted. Honestly, a lot better than I could make. Arms are pretty good. Excuse the looseness there. They're nicely painted, and of course, they're nicely sculpted. It doesn't, to my knowledge, it doesn't look like there's a lot of reused parts from the Raptor, so that's good. Love the black claws there, very nicely well done. The underbelly is pretty good, although I do wish that there was more transitioning here, although I could be wrong and I could be actually accurate to the actual design in the movie. And I love, again, the black stripe detail here, but one thing is that, again, I wish the white outline was there, because it kind of like makes it stand out in a good way. So it is a bit of a bummer. And in terms of like other things too, I don't like how kind of thick the Dilophosaurus is in terms of like the width here, because that's honestly kind of big for a Dilophosaurus. And weirdly, too, the feet are to me, they're kind of small, but according to some people, they are really big. And to an extent, yeah, I can see it. To me, though, they don't look like clown shoe big like the Raptor. That one was terrible in terms of its proportions, but this one, not so much. The eye paint looks so much better than the Raptor. And overall, I really like this little guy. Or little girl. Okay, that sounds really, really out of context. Oh my goodness, that sounds so wrong. I am so sorry, but it looks really good. Now, moving on to, of course, the accessories. And this is the only bit I'm going to kind of sort of break the mold of what I usually do. The Dilophosaurus comes with, of course, the painted frill. Very nicely well painted. But he or she, I don't know the genders of these dinosaurs. I'm sorry. He or she comes with this closed frill, but I don't really like how the look of this thing, because it doesn't even look like this. It's in this like camel color with a bit of red there, which looks cool, but it just looks kind of iffy. And if we just move onto here, it just plugs in there. The bigger gaping hole there fits that, and so there we go. It's fine. I don't really like the way this looks. It just looks like the Dilophosaurus has a huge is wearing a neck collar or a turtleneck, rather than like the frill is closed. I don't know how this is supposed to go, but I think it's supposed to go like that, because there's no way in hell it's supposed to go like this. Because then that just limits articulation. So, I don't think it's like that. But, yeah, pretty good so far. Pretty good figure. Should I go? Well, I will probably do the articulation bit with using the berry, for example. And then we'll move into... But then I'll show you the differences between the berry, the Ceratosaurus, and then, of course, the dilly. So, moving on to... Of course, the Baryonyx. Yeah, the Barry is a pretty ferocious looking guy. I really like the painting on this one, although I do feel, and this is where I'm going to notice the few complaints I have with the Hammond collection, I wish there was a wash to some of these dinos. Because they're not going to look this sparkly clean, and they almost look more like actual toys than anything. It just, I don't know. To me, that's how I feel with it. But yeah, this Baryonyx is pretty good. Now, you could argue that this figure is actually better than the Baryonyx we got in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, as that design, well, this design here is not even the one we see in the movie. As a matter of fact, you could argue this is the one we see in Jurassic World Evolution, like the video game. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. There are some minor things, though, about it. Again, the head. I feel like the head here just is, and this is why I prefer the original design, in my hot take opinion. This just looks really goofy. I think it's because of the teeth. Like, the teeth make this thing look like a toy. And I tried making etches of it, too, back then, but it just doesn't really look very good. On my part. But even then, it just looks very child toy-like, and it doesn't look very good. The eye paint is very nice, and I like the nice specks of blue that we see on the bits and pieces of the face. And I do like the black dry brush over here, or airbrush over there. And one thing I really like, too, is the inner mouth. It's very nice and glossy, and really shows the organic texture, like the tongue and the inner mouth and the upper roof of the mouth here. Although there's a weird thing here. I don't know what that is, but other than that, it's a very cool look. It's just the head and the teeth make it look so childish. Then the rest of the body is very good. I love the texturing and the detail. Although all these guys have showcasing ribs. Unlike the Dilophosaurus, the outline is very much shown right here, and it's very cool, to say the least. And it goes even down to the, well, it doesn't really go to the tip of the tail, but it's close enough. I love the detail with it. It's very, very accurate, and it looks awesome. Although, whenever you try and move the leg, it kind of breaks the mold with it. But other than that, I love the sculpt work with it. The hands, they're a little iffy. I don't know if the Baryonyx had these type of hands, but they just look like a platypus, you could argue. Long nail, I swear, man. And then the little, of course, the underbelly. Consistent until we get to the underbelly, until the under part of the tail. The feet are still kind of massive. Although, again, I feel like it's not entirely noticeable. But once we get to, like, the other dinos, specifically the Giga or the Allosaurus, that's when it kind of changes. But, man, I really love the paint on this guy. I love the paint on the toenails. Very nicely well done. And I just pretty much like it. I have a little bit of a bias with it because this was my first Hammond collection figure, but overall, it's a very cool looking Hammond collection figure. Very nicely detailed, and it's a nice, and back then it was a very nice starter to this line, really. So, yeah, definitely recommend, I really pretty much definitely like this. I don't know what else to say other than it's a good figure, just with some minor inaccuracies like the head. Although the jaw did get loose over time and it can't fully close anymore, so that's a bit of a bummer. Now moving on to the Ceratosaurus. This guy right here, the Ceratosaurus. Probably the best among these small-sized, well, you could argue medium-sized dinos. So it's definitely the best one for me. Yes, as I mentioned with the Baryonyx, I wish there was a black wash or a brown wash with this thing. Really highlight the details and the sculpt work. But everything about it is really good. Of course, there are minor hiccups too, such as the head. Now, if I remember correctly, just like the Barry, this I think uses the Jurassic World Evolution model and not the Jurassic Park 3 model, as the Jurassic Park 3 model is essentially just a retooled T-Rex. So that's understandable. Now, What I find, I think, the most distracting here, and you can see it on camera, guess what it is? It's the teeth. I think this one is actually probably, like, not as bad as the berry, but he makes it looks like a giant bulldog. And it looks kind of silly, too. But other than that, yeah, it's still nicely well done. I love the teeth, and again, the paint on the inner mouth is just as good as the Baryonyx, although not as perfect as the Baryonyx. Again, the detail, look at the detail, too, on the face. It's very nicely well done. Ignore why I'm shaking it. The reason why I'm shaking is because there's a lot of sand in it. But anyways, the eyes are very nicely well done. If I remember correctly, this one had a QC on his eyes, I think. Yeah, specifically this part here. So kind of be warned, but these are kind of outdated and are discontinued. So that's a bit of a shame. The black is on the stripe pattern on his body is still apparent here. Very nicely well done. And I love the paint here. I don't know if I painted this. If I did, that's a bit of a bummer, but yeah, looks very good. Love the paintwork here on the body. I love this, and I like the fact that, you know, even though roughly I feel like they're the same, I like the fact that they're not entirely like the same sculpt. Some of them feel like somewhat retools of one another, or some of them feel very different. Like the berry has a very different structure, and so does the Ceratosaurus. The Ceratosaurus is a lot bigger. The Baryonyx is a lot thinner. Excuse me. But I really like the stripe pattern. It's very nicely well done. And it's actually probably a lot more consistent than the others. Unfortunately, though, there's not that much on the calves and not that much on the underbelly. But other than that, I really like the look of this guy. In terms of the arms, I am a little bit bummed out that they're just stuck in this position. And this makes me go more into articulation. But other than that, I really love the painting and sculpting. Just wish the stripes were a little bit more consistent, and I really wished there was also probably a lot more of a black wash with this thing, or a brown wash, to highlight the details. But it's a very nice looking Ceratosaurus. It's very cool, and I love the little bone. What is this? Like the ramming bone thingy? I don't know, I'm not a paleontologist, as I said. But it's very cool. And yeah, it's a very nice figure. Very brief with this one. So let's move on to the articulation. Articulation for these guys is basically the same with some minor differences, and I'll show a little bit of that. So usually all the dinosaurs wouldn't really would only just get a swivel at the head, like that. As for the Baryonyx, there we go. As for the bigger whereas other figures like the Dilophosaurus and the Ceratosaurus, well, the Ceratosaurus does get that same movement just as much as the berry, and the Dilophosaurus, similar movement, although not as hindering, because now you can actually go all the way around. There is an opening jaw for each of them. There's actually two parts of the opening jaw, one up here and one up here. Now, if you press on the Baryonyx opening jaw, you can make it actually go a hell of a lot wider, which looks kind of goofy, but it might be accurate, who knows, to the actual design. And as for the Ceratosaurus, if you just open it a lot wider and let his upper part of the jaw reach this little bump here, you can make it go even wider. And moving on to the Dilophosaurus, unfortunately, the Dilophosaurus doesn't have that, just a hinge at the jaw. Now moving on to the neck articulation, there will be a ball joint on the neck for the medium-sized dinosaurs. So there we go. So they can tilt right, left, can go up. For the Baryonyx is a lot easier because of the design, and not that much down for the Baryonyx. However, there is also a hinge joint here for the Baryonyx, so up, down, just as much as the Ceratosaurus, although not a lot of it, although he can tilt look from side to side. There is a ball joint there too. For arm articulation, and this is where again it's more consistent. Swivels at the arms. Hinge that can go out, in, and only a single jointed elbow that can only go 90. For the Dilophosaurus, it's a lot more. So it can go way past 90. And Ceratosaurus, the same thing, which is a bit of a bummer. I wish they had a wrist articulation because they just look really ugly with this. No torso movement, which is a bit of a bummer, but I mean, I think we got to let the neck do all the work. So there is a swivel around for the leg. Not that much of splits on all these guys. There is a hinge at the knee and a swivel at the knee, along with a hinge here. So you can go back by that far and go forward about that far, and then a hinge here and here. A hinge there and there, and you can have a pivot right there, so it can go down, and it can go up, and of course pivot. And then there is usually a ball joint at the tail with a bendy wire, and it's all consistent, although I think the Ceratosaurus is a lot tighter, so yeah. Posability for, again, all of them is great. You can get them into a lot of crazy poses, or at least to what the figure's articulation can give it, because in reality, you can't really do so much. But, I mean, there's a lot you can do here. You can make them fight each other, as I'm going to showcase here. And it works really well. So yeah, overall articulation on all three of them is really good. You can get in some really good poses, and I'll show them right here as to what I mean. So yeah, in terms of articulation, you can get some good poses. Not a lot. And there are some hindrances, but not too much to the point it doesn't feel unplayable. And yeah, you can. I feel like these are definitely a nice option and are very much a collector-friendly option compared to usually the kids' toy stuff. So yeah. Now let's move on to the size comparisons. We got the Three Stooges up in here. Anyway, the Dilophosaurus is at most almost 4.5. So he's about like 4 and maybe 4.3 or 4.1 inches. The Ceratosaurus and the Berry are at minimum almost 6.5 inches. So take that as you will. So, and as for, of course, size comparison, you guys are technically customs, but I didn't want to get my zombie Captain America. But yeah, they are a little small compared to your average 6 and 7 inch scale figures. So we have a DC Multiverse Batman and a Marvel Legends Spider-Man. They're being customized, and that's why they're missing some parts. But yeah, from the issue with this line is that it only, if you have, like, it kind of doesn't really scale well with your 6 inch figures. Excuse me. If you really, really wanted to, you probably, if you want to get like figures to go alongside them, you have to get like the 3 3/4 inch figures, which basically kind of scale in line with the rest of these guys. So yeah, a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. But yeah, anyways, so we move on to our final thoughts on these three. I'm gonna use this one to kind of conclude the video. So, are these figures worth getting despite the fact they're so expensive? Yeah, I say they're worth getting. Although I would really, really recommend you find these for a very cheap price, because I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know how much these guys are, but I do know that Ceratosaurus kind of costs a lot. I know there was one other collector. I'll put a video, an image on screen, but I do know there is one person who was able to find the Hammond Collection Ceratosaurus used in a lot, and boom, was able to get it. In my opinion, yes, they're good. Despite their flaws, and even though that they all share the same articulation, and well, I will admit it is a bit boring, but then again, you could argue the same thing with Marvel Legends, so I am not gonna say too much. And yeah, overall, like, these guys are awesome. they're great. They're nice to pose. They're very nice. And and with some camera trickery, you can definitely fudge them in some sort of like Marvel Legends display. Some people have used some of them for like a Marvel Legends Savage Land dinosaurs, which could work really well. And yeah, overall, they're really good. But I just don't think they're worth the aftermarket prices. Definitely get them at minimum, maybe 30 USD, or if you're in Canada, again, maybe 30 Canadian or something like that. I don't think they're worth a lot. I don't think they're really worth a lot, but yeah, I really hope that for that. Or, if possible, if you want to, definitely wait if they're going to do reissues. Now, granted, I don't know if they're going to do reissues, so this is not even a rumor or anything. I'm just spitballing. If they do reissues, definitely just wait for that. But if you really, really want them, get them, but just get them at a cheap price. So, yeah, that's it, really. I don't know if they're going to do reissues, but who knows. As for my ratings for this guy, I will give the Dilophosaurus a solid 7, and I'll give the Berry a 7.5, and then my favorite, being the Ceratosaurus, is going to get an 8. I really like all of them, to be fair. They have their own little issues again, but they're all really fun. As if you hear clicking noises, that's because I have the NECA Kong with me, because I did some awesome poses with them. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. My main goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers, so that means we can do a lot more stuff, and hopefully we can do hopefully there is going to be a collab or something like that. So stay tuned. Once we hit 50, once we hit 1K, I'll plan out what I'll do then. But until then, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. I know this video was a bit scattered-brained, but that's because I didn't really have so much to say for these guys. But anyways, yep, until the next review, whatever that will be. Probably, so yeah, definitely stay tuned. Bye-bye.